Okay, so today I'm just going to show you guys how to use this new imperfect subjunctive in a complete Spanish sentence. So just to review a little bit about the present subjunctive, because we're going to need some of these trigger phrases again in the imperfect subjunctive. So write in your pink packet notes where you wrote down the imperfect subjunctive conjugation steps, you will find this page. I believe it's on the back of the first page of your pink packet notes. So once you get there, it says uses. Number 1, you use the past subjunctive the same way that you would use the present subjunctive, which is to express uncertainty or doubt of some kind. And you're going to be looking for keywords and expressions. Okay, and remember those keywords and expressions are going to be things like I hope that, I doubt that, I am happy that, things like that. So last year in Spanish 4, when you did the present subjunctive, you used the present tense, the future tense, or a command at the beginning of your sentence. So it could be a simple sentence like, I hope that it doesn't rain today. So the I hope that part was in the present tense, and the it doesn't rain today part would be in the subjunctive tense. So just to review a couple of sentences here, you have espero que Juan venga a la fiesta. So you can see that you have espero que, which is present tense, and then this venga is the present subjunctive. So that sentence is just saying, I hope that Juan comes to the party. And then the second sentence, you have a similar sentence, but the beginning is a little bit different. It says, esperaré que Juan venga a la fiesta. So now it's saying, I will hope that Juan comes to the party, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's just an example of when the future tense might be used at the beginning of a sentence. And then the last one is an example of when a command would be used at the beginning of a sentence. So it says, tell Juan to come to the party. Okay, so that's just showing you that at the beginning of these subjunctive sentences, you can either have the present tense, the future tense, or what's called the imperative, which is what we did at the beginning of the year. We formed commands. So any of those three things can start a sentence that uses the present subjunctive. So today, I want to show you when the imperfect subjunctive would be used. And remember, we're just going to call it the past subjunctive sometimes, but just know that it's the imperfect subjunctive that we're using. So if you're going to use the imperfect subjunctive in an entire Spanish sentence, you're going to start with either the preterite tense, the imperfect tense, or the conditional tense. And then there are also going to be times, and you'll have to add this into your notes because I don't think you have it, but there will also be times when you just use general expressions in the present tense. So things like I hope that, I'm happy that we talked about before. So just to show you some examples of that, this first one starts with me gustó que Juan viniera a la fiesta. So that one starts with a preterite verb, me gustó. So what that says is, I liked that Juan came to the party. So now notice both of those things are in the past. Let me just make this a little smaller here. So again, you have the preterite, and then the second half of that is the imperfect subjunctive. In the second example, you have esperaba que Juan viniera a la fiesta. So in the second part of that sentence, you see that the imperfect was used. So I hoped that Juan would come to the party. So notice we didn't translate that exactly word for word from Spanish to English, but you know sometimes that when you use subjunctive, you kind of have to rearrange what you're saying from Spanish to English in order to make it make sense. And then the last one uses the conditional. So you see that ia ending. So it says, me gustaría que Juan viniera a la fiesta. So notice we're still using that viniera. Nothing has changed about the imperfect subjunctive. But it says, I would like Juan to come to the party. Okay, and then the last one is just an example of one of those general sentences. Estoy contenta que nosotros tuviéramos escuela hoy. So I am happy that we had school today. And this is that sentence that Abby was asking me about in class the other day. Like, can't you just say, I am happy that we had school today? And I kind of thought about it, and you can say that. So you just use the present tense at the beginning and the imperfect tense at the end, the imperfect subjunctive. Okay. The second use would be to make a very polite request or a suggestion. And that is only going to be used with the verbs deber, poder, and querer. So for example, this one says, I would like 2 books, please. Meaning, I guess, you're not sure that you're going to get the books, but you're politely saying, I would like them. And then, could you help us? So again, you're only going to see that not very often, just with verbs like deber, poder, and querer. And then more frequently, you'll see things like this. It says 3 in conditional sentences, si clauses, or with the conjunction como si, which means if that, this, then that. So these sentences are things like, if I had money, I would go with you. Or he talks to me as if he was a teacher. So those as if type situations, if I had money, if he was a teacher, those are going to cause you to use the imperfect subjunctive. So what I want you to look at, just to get a little practice of this, is in your green practice packet. You're going to be looking at page 8. And you'll see it starts and looks like this. I kind of divided this activity into sections. So you're going to see the first section is going to start with an imperfect verb and then use the imperfect subjunctive. The second section is going to start with the conditional and then use the imperfect subjunctive. Third is preterite and then imperfect subjunctive. And then the last part is general phrases, imperfect subjunctive. So I just have a different page for each section. You just have, your pages are just divided in half, but it's the same sentences. So I'm just going to show you an example of each one so that you can kind of practice on your own. So just to give you an example again of how you're going to have to kind of change your sentence around, this first sentence in English says, they wanted me to talk to the principal, but that would make this imperfect and then this just the infinitive. And that doesn't work. We have to make this imperfect subjunctive because just because they wanted me to do something doesn't mean I'm going to. So instead, I know this is going to sound funny, but you're going to change it to say they wanted that I talked to the principal. So what's that going to look like? You're going to start with just the regular imperfect. So you're looking at querer and they in the imperfect. So that says they wanted that. And then you want I talked in the imperfect subjunctive. So remember that you would start with hablaron, which is the aos form of the preterite, and you get rid of that ron. So you start with hablaron and take off the ron, and the yo ending would just be ra. And then to the principal would be al director. So again, you're starting with the imperfect in these first 5 sentences, and your second half of the sentence should have a form of the imperfect subjunctive. Okay, so you should do the rest with the bottom. You're starting with a trigger phrase in the imperfect, and then you need an imperfect subjunctive verb in the second half. So the second one, we're using the conditional tense. So it says you would be able to buy lunch if you had the money. So you would be able to do something. So you have to think about what verb that is. That's going to be poder, to be able to. And you want to use the conditional. So that's your ias endings. So you would be able to buy the lunch if you had money. So notice these conditional sentences most of the time are going to have the word if in there. Those are what's called si clauses. The word si is if in Spanish. So if, so whatever verb comes right after the if needs to be in the imperfect subjunctive. So if you had the money. So that would be tuvieras el dinero. The next situation is preterite and then imperfect subjunctive. So we start with, he asked that you finish the job. So he asked that beginning, oh, there's the vowel, excuse me. The beginning is going to be el pidió, que, preterite, to terminarás el trabajo. So again, first part preterite, this part is imperfect subjunctive. And then lastly, general phrases. These phrases, the beginning, and in all of these, it's actually going to be ojalá or espero que, because they all say I wish that. But these can just be in the regular present tense. So alá que you were here would be estuvieras aquí. So basically in the second half of all of these sentences, you're going to be using the imperfect subjunctive. The only part that's changing is the beginning, and they're all identified, which form you should be using for each. So I would have you guys please finish that up. And then you're also going to see on Schoology something labeled imperfect subjunctive sentences for homework. And that is what I had our class do for homework today. So I want you to give that a try, and we will go over it in class tomorrow. All right. Thanks for watching.